Welcome back to another episode of the Paper Gain Show. I'm Johnathan Rankin, joined by my co-host Matt McGee. Matt, how are you doing?
I'm doing amazing. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic. March Madness is here. My bracket's still alive, which I can't wait to dive into to hear how you're doing. But our biggest topic that I really want to dive into is the hardest part about retirement planning. Now we've got a lot of topics we're going to go through in this episode, but I want to kick it off with that one just because with everything going on in the markets, there's always concern about investment portfolios. But is that really the hardest part about retirement planning, or what do you find as you talk to clients that is, in your mind, the hardest part about planning for retirement?
Without getting into like the specifics of somebody's individual circumstances or their age, I would say it's more about like managing living in the present versus the future, if you will. And so managing those trade-offs. Obviously, you need to save, contribute to a 401k, all the various different types of accounts, but life happens, and managing more the personal side of it, I would say, if I had to point to one thing that was the hardest part, managing that would be what comes to mind. What about you?
That's a great answer. I think mine's kind of in the same vein of, you're always trying to figure out and balance. There's only so much money, every single month that people have to figure out what they want to do. Do they want to live their lifestyle today? Do they want to save it for the future? And if they're saving for the future, where are they saving? Are they saving for kids' college, or are they saving for their retirement, or for a purchase they might have, even before retirement? I think that's a very good, valid point. I think what I found is one of the hardest things about retirement planning is for someone to really run their own race. And what I mean by that is I hear so many people that ask, well, how am I doing relative to people that are my age? How am I doing relative to the benchmark? What benchmark? Who sets what benchmark for who? If your portfolio is not 500 cap weighted, market cap weighted stocks, you're comparing it to the S&P 500. It's you know people set these benchmarks. It's sometimes becomes a little unachievable, or it could become frustrating and demoralizing, especially when you're comparing yourself to someone else's retirement. You think, well, if I've got X amount and they've got X plus times two, does that really matter? As long as you can live the rest of your life without having to worry about money, that's the whole goal about retirement. But that's what I've seen as one of the biggest challenges when it comes to retirement planning is just staying disciplined to yourself, knowing that you're running a race that you only know where the finish line's at, and you only know what that finish line looks like, and it's hard to do. It's like I always equate to it's like working out at home. I don't know if did you ever try like P90X back in the day when that was a big thing?
No, I remember a friend's dad was on it. That's what comes to mind. But I yeah, I very familiar with it.
It was so hard. You got Tony Horton yelling at you for ab ripper X. I mean, one of the best workouts I've ever done, but it's so hard to just push yourself when you're in the lab by yourself, just at home, trying to work out on carpet, and there's no one else, around you. It's hard. It's not easy to do, and that's how I feel retirement is. You're constantly doing this in a vacuum, kind of by yourself, and you're doing it for your own life. And so starting to compare yourself to other people, it makes it a lot more challenging. And all it does is just put thoughts in your head of, am I doing the right thing? Should I be doing more? Am I doing too much? Should I be doing less? And as opposed to just putting together a plan and sticking to that plan, regardless of what anybody else is doing, because someone else's retirement isn't going to pay your bills. So that's what I see as the biggest challenge of retirement.
I want to argue with you, but I firmly agree with you there. Also, what comes to mind, just because I saw it recently, but it was a Tiger Woods quote, something along the lines of, like, the world rewards you for what you do in private. This seems very applicable here, given you could spend 10, 20, 30 years contributing to a 401k, contributing, doing Roth conversions, doing to a brokerage account, and you might drive a pretty boring car. On the outside, you're not really that millionaire next door, but in reality, you're accomplishing all of your financial goals and by running your own race.
Yeah, as long as he wasn't saying that about driving, I think that I'll take his advice. But as long as it wasn't how he drives in private, but that's neither
Yes.
here nor there. But no, it's a great point, great quote. But let's move on to something that, that's pretty timely, especially with the new policies that the President Trump's talking about rolling out, and one of them that's been getting headlines that could absolutely impact a lot of the clients that we work with is you know is the ability to tax Social Security, and should that be taxed, and whether or not he's going to go through with that and reduce and eliminate the taxes on Social Security. Do I think the main question is, do you think that Social Security should be taxed, or is it a double tax?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a double tax, but that's never stopped the IRS. So, what do we know? Like the government definitely needs tax receipts, and we've got an aging population. That's more people on Social Security living longer, eh, and so I don't see them changing it, but who knows? Especially since maybe they change things for you and I, because like Social Security definitely needs money. So I'm just struggling to see how they change something like that. But that's just me. I mean, do I want them to tax it? Obviously, no. But do they? Yes. So it's one of those necessary evils, if you will, that uh, and it's a smaller portion of most people's retirement income, especially that we have the pleasure of working with. But it's still annoying. But that's at least my perspective.
Yeah, I think especially when it comes to Social Security taxation, that's the one that I've seen people get thrown off with, especially that first year that they retire and they claim their Social Security benefits, is that they don't realize that it is likely going to be taxable for them, and so they end up with this tax bill at the end of it, at the end of the year, and they go, well, no, it's because I wasn't doing any sort of withholding, and so I've seen it throw people off. Now, do I think they're going to change it? I, I I think they're probably going to, but I also think they're going to extend the how
Full
much is.
retirement, yeah,
No, I
or
don't think they're
the
going to.
taxable wage base,
Yeah,
like how much, yeah, yeah, because it's I haven't seen what it is for 2025, but it's like 180,000
I think it was
roughly,
like
somewhere in there.
around like 160 or something like that. But I do think
Yeah.
that if they just push that to 200 or whatever that number is, because how many people, obviously it's going to affect a lot of people in terms of not paying tax on their Social Security, but that's still the people who need it the most probably weren't paying taxes already.
Yeah.
Because their provisional income or their combined income is under the limits there. It's really this is more of a, I would say, for the middle class. This is a
Hmm.
benefit for them. The middle to upper class, where it's okay. Hey, you've got this money coming in. Let's just not tax it. Give you some essentially tax-free income. But as we
Yeah.
know, there's really nothing that's tax-free. They're gonna collect
No.
it somewhere else. Do I think it'll go through? Yes, just because it's a great headline. You think he's
Yeah.
gonna get rid
It
of it,
gets
but
votes. Yeah.
it's that bait and switch. It's, hey, look at what I'm giving you over here. Don't pay attention to what's happening on this side.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. That's just me, but I do think that it will happen. Um, I want to go through this next topic that we got a question in from a listener. So by the way, if you're listening to this and you have questions that you want answered, do us a favor. Our emails are in the description. Feel free to shoot an email to us. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. But this question came from a listener. The question is: with the market down from its recent highs, is now the time to do a Roth conversion? So it's a great question because we've had the market pull back. Obviously, we've had some pretty decent up days as well, but for the most part, it's still down from its highs. But what do you think? Is now the right time to be doing some Roth conversions?
Yeah, I definitely think it's always beneficial to take advantage of periods like this. I am more of the mind to get out of the game of market timing and doing this systematically over 10 to 13 years, however long you have in those low tax years before RMDs or Social Security kick in. But say you're 62 years old, you're 2 years into retirement, you've got 11, actually, you've probably got 13 years because it switches to 75 at like 2033, I believe. And so you've got a long window to really unwind and meaningfully unwind that account. Take advantage of, yeah, do it instead of doing it at the end of the year like you always do. Do it now, or do a portion of it. Do something. And so, yes, I am a fan of it where appropriate.
Well, I think part of that is if you are going to do it, one of the things, I would say the pitfalls I've seen people go through when they do a Roth conversion is they convert from something like stock and they are, or something that was actually appreciating in assets. They do the conversion and they're not immediately investing it. So it's a great time where if you're converting something, you can just convert direct shares if you've got something that you like the holding, and it's down. So it's a great time to take advantage of that because, the more you can stack into a Roth. I mean, I always think about, what was it, Peter Thiel's Roth? There was that $5 billion. I always think,
And
how
like
nice would that
Facebook
be?
stock, yeah,
Yeah.
he's the poster child of, but then you hear he's got like an army of accountants and people like us helping, and that I yeah, those stories are awesome. Mitt Romney's another one putting like carried interest from his days at Bain Capital. Those are the two that come to mind when I hear stories like that.
Yeah, those are rare but amazing. If you can put some very low basis, or just stock that is going to appreciate over time. If you've got an asset that you feel comfortable about, or a stock, or that's where, when doing these conversions, that's really what you're thinking about. It kind of goes into that asset location investing as well, where your asset allocation is not the exact same across all of your accounts. That's one of the things I
Yeah.
see people fall into, is that they've got a pre-tax IRA, a Roth IRA, and a brokerage account. All of them kind of look the same, as opposed to saying, my Roth, I want that thing to grow. I could be more balanced in these other accounts, and strategic in how I'm investing the actual investments and assets. It's just making sure that you're investing based on tax location is going to be very important for someone who's investing for retirement.
Absolutely.
Brings us to the next question. In terms of retirement, obviously pensions are kind of a thing of the past. It seems like for at least our generation,
Yeah.
but there's still a large percentage of the population that do have access to the traditional type of pension. But now pensions, over the past dozen years, maybe a little longer, they've been offering the option of the lifetime annuity or a lump sum payment. And there's always that question, what should I take? What should I take, the lump sum and be able to invest it how I want to? Should I take the lifetime income and then have that to be stacked with Social Security, so I have this guaranteed floor? How do you help clients manage that decision, and what do you usually think is the best way to look at that?
Yeah, I think this is a great follow-up question to the previous question. So it really depends on the style of accounts that you have and what you're trying to accomplish. If you're, it can be highly appealing to stack that, like you said, with Social Security. And then you've got, if you pair that with a large brokerage account that can continue to appreciate, and potentially some Roth money that would be very growth focused. So it really depends on a number of factors in your situation. I've seen clients do both and be totally happy. What comes to mind is like Lockheed here is a large employer, and those that have been there for decades have the old Lockheed pension. So they've got Social Security plus a pension. And so somebody like that, maybe it makes sense to roll it over and focus on growth, given that you've got a meaningful income taken care of, depending on their spouse and other assets. But that's a planning situation that comes to mind. What about you?
You know, so the one of the issues that I have with just the traditional pension is a lot of them don't have cost of living adjustments. So I think
Yeah.
that's one thing that you've got to factor into the entire equation is that yes, your Social Security is going to grow, it's going to have its yearly adjustments, but a pension's usually not. And so with that locking in, do you have the other assets that are there to help you with keeping pace with inflation?
Mm.
And the other side of it is interest rates. As interest rates have gone up, those present values of lump sums are less than what they were when interest rates were a lot lower. So there's an interest rate conversation and decision to factor in there as well. And then it really comes down to the family, because if it's a joint and survivor benefit and for, let's say a husband wife couple, well, if something happened and you have kids you want to leave a legacy to, if legacy planning is something that's important to you, well, that's not necessarily going to be an option if you're taking the lifetime annuity. A couple strategies I've seen people employ before is, they take let's call it the single life annuity, and with the difference between that and the joint, they use that to buy life insurance to help give that that legacy planning aspect to it. So there's that where if you qualify for life insurance, that could help. Um, but it's not a hey, you have to take the lump sum or you have to take the lifetime annuity. It really this is a planning 101. You've got to really dive into it and run the scenarios of if we have higher inflation, what happens? If we have normal inflation, if both of you pass away early, what happens? And so you run through all these scenarios and determine what's the best outcome possible out of those, and you kind of rank them, and then it comes down to I've seen so many people where the best situation for them would have been to take the lifetime annuity and they just go, it's my money, I just want to have it in the bank, I want to have it in an IRA or in one lump sum so I can control it. And even though it might not be the right answer on paper, this goes back to personal finance is personal. So
Yeah, yeah, plenty of gray areas.
there really is. And so but it's something that because of how many companies that we work with that still have these legacy pensions, and we get these questions all the time, and I think it's helpful to for people to realize if you're going through this question, one, you're not alone, a lot of people go through it, and two, the way that we always navigate this is really through proactive planning years in advance, and especially if you're years away from retirement, this is something where we don't know really what that lump sum is going to be. We can forecast it, but because a lot of them are based on interest rates, it depends on the direction of interest rates as well. So I've actually had a client who decided to retire 6 months earlier, simply because when the new pension projections came out, the interest rate had gone up, which caused the present value to decrease by a very significant amount, and it made it worth it to actually just retire earlier. So there's a lot of things that that you got to focus on when it comes to that. So last topic here that we want to dive into: buy and hold versus active strategies. This is, and especially in a market like right now where we've got volatility, we've got big up days, big down days. Is buy and hold the way that most people should invest, or should you be active in your account and try and take advantage of movements that we see in the market? What do you say?
Uh, I've seen both for one, but in a market like this, and just given where I believe the broader market is as a whole, I'm kind of a fan of something in between. It's like you kind of start to pick up on these themes, but like financial planning, there's a ton of gray area, and this is one of those that I don't think total active is the right fit for most retirees, but I don't think you totally set something up that was appropriate in 2015 that is still you might have your core pieces that are still appropriate, but at least evaluating and taking a look at what can we add. Do we need to make changes? are each account appropriately invested, or is it the same model across all 5 of your accounts? That's where that's what I mean by active from that perspective, is more just being extremely thoughtful. And maybe it's not every year that you're changing something, but at least adjusting it as people's risk tolerance changes. I mean, I've seen some people that are pretty aggressive at 65 that you to look up and they're 85, and it's still probably more aggressive than it should be. But at least having that conversation, and then adjusting where need be. What do you think?
it to me it comes down to how active are you going to be yourself, not how many trades are you going to make, how
Yeah.
mentally active are you going to be. And it kind of reminds me, like, I'm the type person, I've gone through different, I would say I call them kicks, different things in my life where I'll go like all in. I mean, whether it was CrossFit back in the day. I remember one time I went all in,
Right.
like wanting to make my own cold brew, and like I tried to figure out this whole thing, and then went through like a tea phase. Like, is investing just a phase for you that you're going to just really
Yeah.
dive into, and then all of a sudden you go, you know what, I kind of haven't checked that in a little while, and next thing you know, you've got a bunch of holdings that you just really haven't checked in on. And so that's where I would start first. Is investing a phase, or is it something you really enjoy? If you enjoy doing it, by all means, keep doing it. And as long as you have a disciplined strategy, whether it's active or buy and hold, that works for you, that's great. But if it's just, hey, it seems like a good idea because I heard someone was able to bottom tick a stock and ride a meme stock to the moon, and I want to try that. So you try it for a few weeks, and then you forget your login information. Next thing you know, you haven't looked into your account for like 2 years. That's not active investing. And so that's kind of the way I look at it. It's a person by person thing, but not with the amount of trades you're making. It really comes down to, is this something you're actually going to do? Because I've had so many things where I gotten into, and then I go, my wife will look at things and go, hey, do we still need all of this like coffee making stuff that you don't even drink coffee anymore? It's kind of a weird
Finally,
thing.
like, no, we don't need it. We can sell it now. Like, I'm buying my copy at work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, now it's like, it's a matter of just trying to convince her to let us have a garage sale so we just get rid of all the stuff that I accumulated, because I don't want to do it on Facebook Marketplace where you just have weird people showing up at your house. So
Yeah.
that's just me. But no, it's a good point though, Matt. I think you're absolutely spot on this one. So I have one last question before we get out of here. Most importantly, it's March Madness. How's your bracket doing?
Terrible. Yeah, absolutely. I looked at,
Where are you
I,
at? And because we've got our company bracket and that we've been doing.
okay, you
Where
can
are you
tell
at on
me.
that?
I was, as of Friday, I was 31 out of 33. So,
Now, for those who are listening, this is we just the round of 32 just ended by the time we're filming this. So Sweet 16 hasn't tipped off yet. So we are so there's 33 people in this bracket, and you are. Let me go to second
you
page here.
might have to go to the second page.
31.
31. All right.
Okay, well, you know what? I'm not doing too much better. I'm 19th. As I mentioned, I picked Arizona, and they played last night. Went to the final minutes, and I was up till the wee hours of the morning making sure I was, watching that. And I just kept thinking, I'm staying up later than
Yeah.
I need to watch a game that I've no, if the outcome is the outcome is the outcome. But
And
I'm
you're
going to win this
still
game.
19th. Yeah, you're just slightly better, but you still suck just like I do.
U of A is going to win this thing, and then next thing you
Yeah.
know, I'm going to take home the crown. So, if you're listening to this, you've got to join our company bracket next year and see if you can actually beat Matt or myself. I'm still going to say that I'm going to come out victorious this year, but they play
Yeah.
Duke in the next round, and if they can get past Duke, then all systems
Anything is
go.
possible. Yeah.
That's it. So,
Good
Matt, this is
luck.
fun. Let's do it again next week.
All right. See you then.